she didn't push herself on anyone, or she wasn't bossy, but she was very direct. She took her space. It was no pushing, no edging her out.
It's me and my son in here, and I'm not sure what is going on past that. But I'm just doing what I need to do to protect myself and my child.
I had spoken to the officer, and I said, "This is Korryn Gaines' mom." I said, "I'm on my way." He says, "Oh, it's too late for that."
But for a traffic stop, you're shutting off Instagrams, Facebooks, power, water. Are they taunting me? Like, for real, are they taunting me? Y'all killed my sister over a traffic warrant. This dude shooting at y'all, and y'all walk him out of there? It's definitely two laws in America. It's a white law and a black law.
This is an law for family.
You have every right to be out here. We did not bother y'all.
We're live in Ferguson, Missouri tonight.
This tragic death has exposed so many fault lines in American society.
See the man there, jogging down the road. The killing has sparked protests and demands for arrests.
Say their name. Say their name.
Justice was not given in this case, and that we've got to correct it.
You guys see that shooting that happened 2 days ago? Because don't worry, if you missed it, there was another one yesterday.
Police
2
shooting
videos.
Death of a black man inside his own apartment in Dallas.
Incident after incident, year after year.
Hands up!
When news flashes past and the trauma remains. Whose story? What story? Her story.
He wasn't no criminal. My baby was a good man, good heart.
Hashtags through his story. The story again the same. Until justice and truth obtained, we will always say their name.
I'm Chris Colbert. Thanks for tuning in to Say Their Name, brought to you by DCP Entertainment. This series takes a deeper look into the impact of the assault and killing of Black people by the police and in stand your ground states. We share the stories from families who have been negatively impacted in these situations. We did not talk to officers or to governing bodies, just the families and their support systems. We are not the court of law, nor do we try to be for legal purposes. We are not here to presume guilt or innocence for anyone, because, quite frankly, we do not want to be sued. We simply want to give the families a voice while examining what happens when the hashtags stop, and the news, unfortunately, moves on to the next big story. All we want to do is give the families the opportunity to control their narrative and share ways we can all help. Warning. Some of the discussions may be particularly disturbing and even emotionally overwhelming at times. When one of those moments occur that may be particularly triggering, you will hear this chime. For more specific details on the timing of these moments, please visit our show notes. On this episode of Say Their Name, we focus on Korryn Gaines. Welcome back to Say Their Name. I'm your host, Chris, along with my co-host, Adell.
Hey, Chris.
So, we're staying on the East Coast for this episode as we go up I-95 from the Washington, D.C. area where Adell is from, up to the Baltimore, Maryland area where I'm from. And we want to stick here on the East Coast because at the end of last season, we really wanted to focus more on the women impacted by police violence, and we weren't able to do so. So, that's been a major focus here in this season. But as we had wrapped up last season, we were connected with the family of Korryn Gaines. Her mother, Rhonda, is actually part of a coalition called the Coalition of Concerned Mothers. If you go back to our episodes around Archie Elliott, Dorothy Elliott is also part of that organization. So you can learn more about that organization there. But we were connected by Dorothy to a woman named Marion Gray Hopkins, who was the founder and executive director of the organization. And she knew about our passion to want to focus more on these women. And Marion's son, Gary Hopkins Jr., was actually killed back in 1999 in the same area. Her connecting us with Rhonda was just so selfless. So I really want to make sure that we mention that here before we start talking about Korryn. But back to Korryn. We're really focusing here on these women's stories. And Adell, that has been something that you've really been trying to do for years now. Can you speak to this journey that has led us to this point of trying to tell these stories of women impacted by police violence?
It kind of goes way, way back to previous radio days before we came here. We would often hear, stories of men, and it isn't to say one person outweighs another, but I just think it's important to tell a full circle story of other communities within the communities, women, men, LGBTQ, which we know we'll move to in future seasons as well. But, for me, I just felt, I guess, as a woman, as a mom, and wanting to hear more of these stories and to have that vision fully realized, to be able to share with our listeners, I feel like it's really impactful because we often don't hear about the women's stories as much. We know there are a lot of women behind movements, but there are also women who have been impacted negatively by police encounters as well.
And I think an interesting element to this story, Korryn's story, is social media. Can you talk about how social media has impacted this particular case?
Korryn Gaines, I think a lot of people were familiar with her because of a lot of the videos that she made herself documenting some of the things that she went through, including previous police encounters and unfortunately the one that we feature here that caused her life. She was live on Facebook, and that's how a lot of people, found out about what was happening or thought to have found out about what was happening with Korryn at the time.
Yeah, and as we've learned talking to a lot of these families, in season 1 and now here in season 2, a lot of what we've been trying to get out there is understanding more about the financials. Like, we hear about settlements that go out, especially some of these big settlements, and we think that all is good. But this really touches on some of the twists and turns of what happens financially to these families. Can you speak to that a little bit?
This case, researching it kind of left your head spinning. It was a lot of back and forth. The news wasn't necessarily following with the case as it was rolling out. The last we read or heard before we spoke to the family was that they got the money. And, we later found out that wasn't necessarily true. And the judge was a little too involved than he should have been of making these decisions. And it's just been an ongoing fight. It isn't just as simple as here's money. That's it. In this case, it's a lot of back and forth, not just for Korryn, but also for her young son, Kodi, as well.
We're going to get into more of that journey that the family has had to go through on a financial level as well as legal and so on and so forth. But as always, let's first start with who Korryn Gaines was as an individual. So let's hear about Korryn.
My name is Rhonda Dormis. I was born in Harlem, New York, to a single parent, and raised by my maternal grandmother until I was 18, going on 19 when she passed. I had my oldest daughter at 18. She's 37 now, will be 37. And from there in 86, I got married and moved to Junction City, Kansas, where I lived with my husband. He was in the military. And 2 years later, I lost my mother, who had my twin brothers. They were living with her, and I wound up having to raise them. So I was 20, raising two 14-year-old boys. It wasn't as bad as I think it could have been with the way things are now. My brothers were very respectful young boys. My mother had taught us, we were only 6 years apart, but my mother had taught us, or taught them, to respect me as their elder. And so me having to take them at 20 and them being 14, they were very, they did the normal cutting up, but nothing illegal, anything like skip a class or something like that. And I raised them until they were 18. I never moved back to New York. I wound up coming here when my husband and I separated. Came to Maryland in 89. It was actually Baltimore City, and I remember taking a cab into Maryland and Baltimore City and looking at the lights coming from East Baltimore over and seeing how amazing it was. And that's because my grandmother who raised me, this is her home. And at the time when I moved here, she had 3 living sisters. They were 5 total. And they have a bunch of kids. So I have a whole bunch of family members. 2 of my aunts had 11 between them. So I just wanted to be in surroundings of people I had no familiarity with growing up. I still had a family in New York that loved me, but, I was making a change for myself. But the first job I got here was at Taco Bell. And then I went to home improvement school. It was PTC, home improvement school at the time. And I graduated, HVAC and stuff like that. And myself and one other woman went through the program. We were never successful because they would always look at us because we were women. And then I went to paramedic school. Did that for a while, about maybe 4 or 5 years. I did that in a lot of private ambulance transportation. I knew I didn't want to stay in that area, like packaging up people. I wanted to be in a more stable area where people came packaged. So I said, well, I got most of the prerequisites from the paramedic program. Let me try for the nursing program. I went through orthopedics, and then we had to travel to oncology. So I saw my fair share of survival and death on the oncology unit. And then ultimately, I stuck with orthopedics and psych. So my last, maybe, I don't know how long I was in psych, about 8 years I was in psych. And I really, really enjoyed psych, and I was really, really good at it. I was able to handle some of the more difficult patients, and it takes a lot of patience, and it really has to take a love for doing this work, doing nursing. And I did that for about 15 years until I had a stroke in 2014 that kind of wiped me out from being able to perform those duties anymore. So I wound up taking early retirement.
As Rhonda worked various jobs, she found her passion in helping others. And not just her as a nurse, but also as a mom.
Well, I have 3 biological, and I have 1 that I actually adopted. She was a preemie, and her mom and dad had some cognitive challenges, and they were unable to provide the care that she needed. And so her mother requested that I take her. And I've had her since she was, about a year. She was born 2 pounds, 10 ounces. She was tiny. That was my start of having 4 children. So my oldest one is Sheena Miles, and she was born in 84. I was 18. And then Ryan, who was 31, he'll be 31 this year, June 12th. And then Korryn, which would be 29 this year, in 90 and 92. And then I got Naila in 2006 legally. I got her. I'm famous for picking out older names. I like older, simpler names. And I've always liked the name Korryn, and I just wanted to put a spin on it and not spell it the traditional way. And so, yeah, I had them pretty young, but this is the thing. When you have multiple children, you can still get it done. You just might not be able to get it done with fluidity. I could have been considered a strict disciplinarian. I just didn't tolerate nonsense. School was something that was not, you were going to go to school and you were going to get an education. I didn't force college on all of them because each child is individual, and I knew what my children's propensity could have been just by dealing with them. Like, this one, you ain't for college. You need to go ahead and, do something different. I was strict. I got a lot of community support because I worked a lot. And I worked overnight, so my neighbor would keep an eye on the kids while I went to work. We had a organization of older guys in the neighborhood, the freeloaders. They just was a community of guys that hung out, old professionals, old wardens, and people that retired from the bus and the train and stuff like that. And they would, also be my support. They knew they could get on the phone and say, didn't you say you wanted them in at 8 o'clock or when the lights came on the street? So I tried to keep them in things that would tie up some of the extra time that could become idle. I would get off of work after 12 hours, and we had football practice, cheerleading, swimming. My son, he was a daredevil. So I remember one day I brought him home from football practice. I'm going to try to get a couple of hours sleep before I go to work. He comes in the house with his finger sticking up like this. He's out playing football and has totally an open break. I take him to the hospital. They do the emergency surgery, put a pin in. The next day, he comes home, and what does he do? Go back outside and play football and hit his hand. My kids were always adventurous. Korryn, she was feisty. She was one of those children some people would consider a smart mouth because, growing up, you could never say anything that implied that an adult was lying on you, okay? And she didn't push herself on anyone, or she wasn't bossy, but she was very direct. And I did see, from the time she was in Head Start, she took her space. Was no pushing, no edging her out. She solidified her space more. She wanted her foundation. You were going to remember her if you met her. And it was positive 90% because she could cut up sometimes. But if something didn't happen, she was very vocal about it. She would definitely speak up and say, and she would come home, if she got in a little something in school, she would come home and tell me, oh, I do have a good one for you. So all of her teachers knew that I worked at night. I'd have to be in at 6:45, and sometimes I wouldn't get home to 9 o'clock in the morning. So this teacher called me in a good sleep. I was out, to tell me that Korryn farted in class. So I asked him, I said, did she say excuse me? And he said, yeah. I said, well, why are you calling me?
Right.
Like, stuff like that. She, you know, she would do what she had to do and apologize for it or whatever. If you don't let her go to the bathroom, just silly stuff. She was very, very outspoken. Something that happened in school where teacher crossed the line. The teacher didn't come with the whole truth, but she didn't know that Korryn had come home and told me everything. And so when I went and spoke with the teacher, again, she didn't tell me anything. So then one of the other teachers went and brought Korryn to the meeting. And Korryn, she not only told what she did, and she spoke about what the teacher did that was inappropriate. So, like I said, for lack of a better term, she was always outspoken, and she was going to speak her mind. And it followed her throughout her life. As she needed to exert herself, she would.
And in true sister form, her favorite person to exert herself to was her brother.
Korryn and Ryan, which is my only son, have the same father. They would sometimes take up against my oldest daughter. The sisters, the oldest sisters, her and her sister, they got along pretty good. They did the normal fighting that sisters and, siblings do, nothing out of the ordinary, Like her and myself, all of my daughters, we have spats, but we know how to work through them, Korryn and Ryan, those two together, if he did something to her and it wasn't really worth me knowing about, but she wanted to get at him, she would scream at the top of her lungs, "Ma!" And of course, I'm jumping up, I'm running to see what's going on.
My name is Ryan Gaines. I'm the brother of Korryn Gaines. Well, according to other people, I'm little brother, but I'm the oldest. Yeah, they always got that from me. Like, is that your big sister? Like, no, she may act like it, but, I'm the older. She's the queen. I mean, she led, so. But, we did kid things like, take things apart. I think my mom mentioned the story about me and my sister actually breaking the chandelier in the hallway after being warned.
Korryn and Ryan, they were throwing a ball in the house, and I told them, I said, if y'all break my light dome, I said, y'all gonna be in trouble. Somebody threw it, and I heard it come crashing down, and they heard me coming, ready to come up the stairs. They were pulling each other back down the stairs from in front of each other to keep from, they wanted to get up the stairs first. So he would pull her back down, and he would go a little bit, and she would pull. It was something out of the cartoons, but those two would really, really cut up.
Yeah, we were mischievous kids. I mean, we weren't bad. Everybody thought she was the oldest, so naturally she was the ringleader. So, like yin and yang, that she was my biggest cheerleader. I played Pop Warner football, and she cheerleaded for me, literally. She actually played, like I said, she was my gang to my gang. We played tag football in the street. She was right there playing. To this day, she's the only girl I know who can throw a perfect spiral. With nails. With nails. We got in trouble a lot back in the day, and I can honestly say it was because of her. It was my actions, but it was her. Boo-boo, do this, do that.
I heard a nickname in there.
Boo-boo.
Boo-boo?
Yeah, it stuck.
So that's what she used to call you?
Yeah.
And what did you used to call her?
Rookie.
Oh.
I still cannot remember what the origin of that name was, but there was Rookie. My brother called her Rennie. She had several nicknames. Yeah, she had several nicknames. But Rookie and Rennie, those were two that I could call off the top of my head. Yeah.
Heard everyone call her Rookie, and I guess it just stuck. Just like Boo Boo, I can't really put my name on where that nickname came from. It just stuck. From what I understand, my mom said my dad used to call me Boo Boo.
That's how it was. And at that time, we had a family. We had a village that would look out for one another. And we had kids that respected the village. It was a lot of support. It really was.
One of those biggest supporters was Korryn's stepfather.
My name is Anthony Day, and I'm Korryn Gaines' stepfather. We was real special. We just ain't have no regular father and daughter relationship. We was friends. And that was my buddy, along with my daughter. But we never crossed the line with each other. She always gave me respect as her father, and I always gave her respect as my daughter. And we just bonded. I mean, it was just, I don't know, it was special. It was really special. It's really touchy for me right now. I remember one time, and I took them hiking, and we was going through the woods, and we had to come across the stream, and my other son, and him, they was chicken. And Korryn was just, let's do this, you know. And I wound up having to put one of y'all on my back or something. But man, Korryn, we went across, and we had to wait for them. Korryn wasn't scared, though.
Miss Fearless.
I'll never forget that day. She took charge. We had so many experiences. That was my daughter, you know. Korryn was a diva. She was a real diva. She's always wanted me to cook. She liked the way I cook my chicken. She didn't want nobody to cook her chicken but me, and they could tell you that. We used to like to go to the Six Flags. I remember one time we went to Six Flags. She wasn't supposed to get in the water, but Korryn, we got in the water anyway, you know. We was gonna go bungee jumping. I don't know what happened. I don't think Rhonda had a fit about that or something. Long line, that's what it was. Everybody else was scared to go. Man, we was ready to go bungee jumping, yeah. But we had a lot of fun.
But never a dull moment.
Yep, I used to take her on the field, and when she got used to driving, then I started taking her to the streets. You know, just little side streets and stuff like that, nothing busy. And then I just felt comfortable for her to take the wheel. And I used to take her to, she used to drive us up to school every morning.
That is so cool.
Yeah, she was way ahead of her time. Very way ahead of her time.
Yeah, she was. I told her that when she was like 17 years old. I said, you're ahead of your time, because she was just so mature. For her age. I guess that's why I got a little closer to her, because she was just so mature for her age. You know. Sometimes I had to I think she's 17. You know, because she was just so mature when we used to talk.
A natural leader, Korryn was able to hold a conversation with those older than her. She also had a thirst for knowledge, which was reflected by one of her biggest passions.
She loved reading a little bit of everything. If she can read it, she's going to read it.
Like a lot of drama novels, stuff like that.
And of course, Black history, that goes without saying. I can't speak on everyone else, but yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. Korryn was my main source of the knowledge I have today. Everything she learned, she presented it to me. I researched it. You know what, sister, you're right. I don't know, I'm going to say something controversial, but she believed that the Black woman is God. She presented that to me. You know, she told me what she knew, why she was here. Of course, she passed. I continued to research, and I can actually say I believe the earthly God here is that Black woman. It's just certain things she bring to your attention. It just makes sense. Her analogies, her examples, like everything. It just makes sense. So yeah, she does do research, she read, and she does, like I said, I can't speak on everyone, but she taught me certain things that she's learned over the years, you know, over her time being here. And it stuck.
She had just came into the knowledge that she came into, right? She just ain't really know how to channel it yet. You know, like when a kid get a brand new bike, they so excited, they want to ride it. And she didn't break it in yet. She was just wild with it, right? Because it was so intrigued to her. She was learning all this stuff at one time, you know, that's when she became into the consciousness.
She used a lot of her energy through spoken word. And so she would do a lot of writing. She had a book. I don't have access to it. Her dad was the one that actually had taken possession of that, and I never saw it again, but she had a whole book of spoken word, and one that has done a lot of media attention or social media attention is Eraser and Pen.
Life gives you something to hold on to that should never run out, like a pencil. The paper offers manifestation and the eraser offers perfection. So now when I ask myself in high school, why was it necessary? So now when I ask myself why in high school it was necessary to have pen and paper, unlike the pencils in elementary school, I understand that it created an illusion that there was only one way to be perfect, when there are infinite ways of perfection in all times at one. But the perfection of truth can never be non-existent. But the perfection of truth can never be non-existent, but continuous. If every so-called mistake can't be fixed, it takes away the possibilities, which would mean that one has run out of paper. So the lead no longer matters, and the eraser becomes the imagination instead of creation. Your imagination is nothing without creation. Writing with this pencil tells me that if you keep erasing enough, you'll need another sheet of paper, so you can never run out of it, or pencils with erasers. The eraser gives you the option to correct and perfect. The paper gives you the possibility, while the possibilities enables the idea and thought to write something with the pencil, and the eraser provoking mistake, but also the lead promoting perfection and standing for some type of truth. The cycle of the lead, pencil, paper, and eraser is similar to the idea of existing in more times than one and always becoming exactly what it's meant to be at the same time. Infinite possibilities leave room for no mistakes, only times of truth in many forms, perfecting and protecting one main goal. That being to create substance, something that matters, like the lead and the pencil and the eraser at the top. Life gives you something to hold on to.
Her wordplay, it was amazing. It would capture you. Preach love, understanding, overstanding, says overstanding.
With a thirst for knowledge, Korryn went to college to pursue higher education. But her family soon found out, quite unexpectedly, that she would be applying those qualities of love and overstanding on a new journey, motherhood.
I had just put her in college, Morgan State University. She was going for political science. And she would have been an excellent lawyer, let me tell you. She would have been an excellent lawyer because she thought, like most lawyers do, outside the box. And I think this was in, I want to say October or November. And one of her girlfriends called me, and they were going back and forth saying, Korryn was saying to her, no, you can tell her. And she was like, no, you tell her. And I said, what? I said, are you pregnant? And everything went dead for a second. And then she got quiet and she was like, yeah. And I was like, are you serious right now?
Don't quote me, but I remember, I think I was the first person she told she was pregnant, and she was just, stressed. I told her, like, what you stressed out for? You're mature, like, you got it. And you see she had it.
Yeah, that's when Kodi was on. She was pregnant with Kodi at that time, yeah.
It was kind of hard for me. Like I said, I believe she was the first person to tell me she was pregnant, and, my big brother aggression came out like, what? But, I mean, I had to accept it. She was a woman, she's been a woman, but I had to accept it, if you understand what I'm saying. I had to give her a space, I had to back off a little bit. I didn't like it, but I had to.
Vaughn, her mother told me. And I was like, I'm waiting for you to say you joking, But she was for real, though. And at the time she was in college, because I used to go up to the college every week. I used to take them shopping every week when she was in college, because she never went to the mess hall. She never ate. I used to always bring her food up there. And every week I take them shopping. And then she said she was going to continue her classes.
Someone had told me that Notre Dame, I think it was, had some kind of a program where parents and children could stay on a campus type setting. And I had actually started to do the research on that. And then she was like, Ma, she was just, I don't want to put you through that. You paid a lot of money to get me here, and I'll do something different.
And so I said, well, you can do it from home. We was get one of those little boxes where she can take her classes online or whatever. It was good.
Ultimately, she went to do what I thought was her second love, but it became her first love, and that was makeup and hair. She went to, what was the name of the school? I can't even think. It was in Maryland, but she did go there and finished and everything.
I mean, she stayed on top of everything. Even though she had Kodi, she still was, matter of fact, her drive was even harder. Because she was going to high school, she was working. Her drive got even harder when Kodi was born. So she handled everything.
She did the hair school thing, and she did well. She would do things like make wedding parties and proms, and she did it on the side. She was actually a part business owner at a salon suite in East Baltimore, and she's a property owner. I'm still trying to deal with her properties now because they need to be repaired, but she just got a little more focused when she realized that college wasn't an option. She was an amazing mother. I remember how excited she was to be having Kodi. I wanted to make it special for her too. The father and her weren't together at the time. And I mean, that didn't bother her, but, I just wanted to make those moments of her coming into a situation as a single mother. I wanted to have it as balanced as I could and just be there to support her. She nursed. She was just attentive. She talked to Kodi like he was an adult. Like, she didn't Google guys. She let him know, I love you. You're my king. She would say things like that, my prince. She was firm, though. She didn't tolerate no cutting up. She had to maintain respect. You have to respect adults. You don't cross the line. But she was just a good mother. She fed them healthy. In the last few years, she had gotten into a vegan-type diet and things like that. She was just an excellent, nurturing mother.
I know she always talked to me about starting her own homeschooling, educating our own, children, our own black kids, our own kind. She was real big on her people, loving her people, and just trying to uplift her people. And I think that was her main goal, was to just make an impact. What she actually did, her impact, she blew up. And I'm just being real. I mean, it's just sad she had to go, but we're still here. We'll continue, but, one of her biggest things was education, because you got to educate the young. Kodi was reading on like a 3rd grade reading level. He was never in school. Knew how to read, knew his colors, knew, I don't know about 1 through 100, but he knew 1 through 50 by age 2. Like, my sister, she was amazing at it. Like, Kodi is one of the smartest young men I've met at his age. Hands down. And I ain't just saying that because it's my nephew. Like, he's smart as a whip. And I credit that to my sister, because he had no schooling and he was still smart. She taught him.
A few years after having her son Kodi, Korryn gave birth to her daughter, Carson. Little Carson just so happened to be upstairs during our interview with an unlikely friend.
Do you have any fun stories or anything you like to share with all of them and with us?
Let me break. She is cutting up. And she's by herself. That's the crazy.
She's having the most fun. I'm here for it.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
You're making too much noise. I told you were recording. You have to stop jumping and screaming and keep that stinky door shut. That turtle tank has to be clean.
No worries.
She has these magnetic box, and she's stacking them really high.
And then they're falling
and
over.
And they're falling.
She's practicing with gravity. I'm here for it. I heard about a little turtle. She has a turtle.
And I just cleaned the tank a week ago. It smells oh my God. He's about this big. And he comes up to the tank when he wants to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Swifty.
She took regular care of Kodi and Carson. I'm saying she took care of kids. Spoiled them.
She loved to travel. She loved to fly. She would take the train. She would take the bus. She would drive. It's like when they used to sometime they would go to Ocean City, just her and the kids. It wouldn't be nothing for you to look up and see her on the beach in Miami with her kids or in California. She would just get up and go. I'm like, well, where are you sending these pictures from? Oh, I'm in California. Just do Sesame plays, just her and the kids. It would just be her and the kids. She was able to give both her children their first, even though Carson wouldn't remember because she was a little baby. She was under 6 months probably, but Kodi will remember because she gave him his first travel experience, She loves flying.
Korryn loved traveling and spending time with her kids. She was very outspoken, not just with her family, but also with things in her community, often using her social media as her platform to speak out on different causes, including police violence.
I would say that Freddie Gray probably was the straw for her. She had already started doing, even before I knew how publicly she was speaking out, she had already spoke out about different cases and expressed her feelings on how we were treated as Black people and how, white people have no regard for us as humans.
Freddie Gray was a 25-year-old black man from the west side of Baltimore who on April 12, 2015, was arrested for possession of a switchblade put inside a Baltimore Police Department transport van, and then, 45 minutes later, was found unconscious and not breathing, his spinal cord nearly severed.
And so when Freddie Gray got killed, that's when I started to really hear her voice and how she was feeling about the things that were going on, not just here in Baltimore, but across the nation. The other people, the Mike Browns and all of them, she wasn't able to get to those things, but it was so chaotic here with Freddie Gray that it probably wasn't even safe at the time to be maneuvering with the children, because she always kept the children with her. But she definitely let it be known that it was unacceptable what we were dealing with. Carson was still little. She did a lot of Facebook Live stuff because Freddie Gray was here.
I was like a war zone. I remember that time. Little Pepper, that's a street name.
He's directly from that neighborhood. We from Gilmore.
I see a little kid. He was a little kid. Little Pepper. I never knew his name was Freddie Gray, though, but that's his street name, Pepper.
It impacted me because, honestly, at this time, I didn't know you can be killed for sprinting. Like, literally, for running. You ain't do nothing wrong. You ran and got killed? He said the riots, it looked like a movie.
No, it ain't changed my perspective at all because that was just another incident. It's just I never saw it on a widespread like that when I see tanks riding down the street. But for the police, I felt the same way. To this day, I feel the same way.
The hate definitely grew between the police and the communities. Definitely. I mean, it's expected. Hit Korryn. I wouldn't say she was glad to see people tearing up stuff, but she was glad to see the young generation having a voice and voicing their anger. Because like I said, it ain't about the burning, it ain't about the looting. It's about, you feel me, hear my cry. You feel me? We're going to do all this until y'all see why we're doing it. So yeah, she was well vocal about, do what y'all got to do to get y'all point across. And I support that. Like I said, I'm not supporting hurting nobody, violence, but we have to do something for this government to hear our cries out. Our cry out. But yeah, she was very vocal about it.
That's the only thing I can stress, to be safe, be mindful of what she was. But it's like, because we just get real political, and it's like I told her one time before, it's like the government is the very same people that we ask for help, and we want them to make the change, but they're the same people that allow all this stuff to go on.
Though her stepdad encouraged her to be safe, Korryn found herself coming face to face with police officers.
I know that, and she had videoed it. I don't know whatever happened to it. I know one time she was driving with Carson's dad, and the police pulled her over. She was driving. She was legal. She had insurance, all that stuff. And they were ordering her to sit down on the ground, and she was, "What are you stopping me for?" And I don't think they ever got to the gist of why they had stopped her. That was before Carson was born. She had that run-in, and then, of course, the run-in that you know about, the one that circulated about them pulling her over without the tag.
Give me driver's license registration.
Am I free to go? No. Is there a crime being committed?
Can you tell me one more? Yeah, you don't have a driver's license. You don't have a tag.
Okay, who are you?
I am the Baltimore County Police Department.
Okay, so I don't participate in that. You are not authorized?
Let me see your driver's license or I'll have to arrest you. And I don't know what you're going to do with your children.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
You're going to arrest me for what now?
Because I have to be able to identify. You don't have any tag on
Sir, you have something that authorizes you.
You see that tag? I've seen this girl before. Do you know who she is? Yeah.
Sir, can you identify yourself?
If I can't ID you, I have to arrest you. I don't understand.
Sir,
just give me your license.
Listen. Yes. You have yet to identify yourself. At this point in time, I don't know who you are and why you're pulling me over.
Turn this car off. Turn this car off.
Sir, can you identify yourself?
I'm telling you one more time, turn the car off.
Sir, can you identify yourself? Okay. He's turning my car off. Get out of the car. No, I'm not complying to that. Listen, I'm not complying to that. Here's I own this vehicle.
So you want to be arrested? You have a child in the backseat. I'm trying to help you out.
No, I understand that.
I mean, do you want me? How you have a child?
Listen, I don't want to be arrested.
That's number one.
Then do what
All
I
I'm
asked, please.
asking
I'm
you
working
for-
with you. I showed you my police ID. I
Right.
don't have to do that, but I did it because I'm working with you.
Sir,
okay? You don't have a tag on the vehicle.
Well, it's never been violent. Like she was a firm believer in the right to travel. I don't know if y'all heard that term, but from my understanding, I believe a lot of Moorish Americans practice it. They have like some type of identification that lets them, I guess, operate vehicles without a license. So she drove around with cardboard tags stating that she was Moorish American, and she wrote like I want to call it
It was free travel. It was a free travel.
Yeah.
But that wasn't Moorish. That was a sovereign
okay.
citizen.
Okay.
But she wasn't a sovereign citizen. She had no credentials or anything to support sovereign citizenship.
When she got pulled over, she was exercising what they were saying, right? But I told her, she probably just went about it the wrong way, right? But she was trying to get that taken care of, She was sovereign citizenship.
She was exercising
right? She
the right
didn't
to free travel.
Right, she didn't recognize that right, They probably was shocked how intelligent she was when they pulled her up, They were like,
And remember her calling me one day saying that when she went to go to her car, and I still actually have the envelope, there was a MVA envelope on her car with a card in it, and it had a ID number, not an ID number, but a number that would associate whatever was going on with her tags being taken. And so I remember telling her to call and find out, like, why would they take your tags? Because I've never known them to just come on the parking lot and take your tags. The card just said MVA and then it had another card in it. But when we called, she did it on three-way. The lady said that she didn't recognize the number in her system and that maybe because it was so fresh. The lady even said that she didn't know of any situations where they come out and remove tags. She contacted the insurance company. The insurance was okay. They faxed to my house a FR-19 showing that it was okay. So after that, I don't know, it kind of just pissed her off. She put the cardboard tags on there. And I forget exactly what it said, free travel or something like that, free travel. So that's the basis for why she was pulled over with that traffic stop. After she got the information about the MVA, she still tried to research and find out what could have happened to her tags. But nobody in MVA had ever even known of a procedure like that. And the number that was on the card had no connection to anything affiliated with her car. So basically, she was SOL out of her tags. I guess she could have, waited for them to send more, but she put the cardboard tags on there. And so when they pulled her over, she had been doing some research about free travel. So that's what she was asking them. Declaration of authority, which a lot of law enforcement officers, they don't even know what it is. It's just something that gives them the right. That was the day that they arrested her, and she actually was pregnant with twins, and the pregnancy was lost because they had actually put her in a solitary room. They didn't give her any food, any water. She finally was able to appeal to somebody that she was sick, that she needed to be seen by the hospital. And they took her. It was in the wee hours of the night. Now, mind you, we called in the precinct because we knew she had been taken into custody. We called the precinct, everybody saying that she had no paperwork had been processed on her. We couldn't find her. But before they released her, there was a paramedic that called me in the wee hours of the night. She was the same medic that had transported her to Northwest Hospital during the arrest. She wound up being on duty again the next day. They took her back to the hospital, and she was able to get a note from my daughter, and my daughter was basically telling her to let me know that they hadn't fed her, she hadn't had anything to drink, and they had put her in solitary. And so when she showed me the documents from the discharge from earlier that day, because me being a nurse, I know how to scrutinize the labs, it was showing that she had some form of dehydration going on, like she hadn't eaten. Like I said, her levels had dropped for her pregnancy, and they had basically stated on the discharge paper that she was miscarrying. They released her. They didn't take and process her out the way they normally do everybody else. They released her. Hence comes the video where you hear her going back to try to find the court papers for her court date.
Hello, sir. I actually called earlier. My name is Korryn Gaines. I was held here for a couple days from the 10th to, I want to say like the 12th, and my property is missing. I have some important paperwork that I don't have.
Officer Paul Connell.
Mm-hmm.
He was the arresting officer.
Right.
So I have a message for him.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you know how soon? Because I'm trying to get my paperwork together. I have court dates and things, and that's very important paperwork that I need.
Right, because I looked in all of our property and the property back.
Mm-hmm.
Holding area everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I'm sure it isn't. It was specifically taken out of here. Discharge papers in a court order.
And the officer acknowledged that he remembered her. He just didn't understand why she didn't have her court papers. It did shift. She was pretty depressed because, I mean, she was pregnant with twins, so she's already hormonal. And then in a split second, she's no longer have a viable pregnancy. And so compounded with who she felt was responsible for it. And that just escalated it, you know. It was a lot on her. It was very depressing for her because now it's like, you know, okay, so you said I was wrong about something, but how about you mishandled my body and now my babies are no longer viable, you know. And she was hurt and she was depressed. She really, really was. That was what got things to where they were or ended up.
On the morning of August 1st, 2016, Korryn and her boyfriend Kareem sat in their home along with their children, 5-year-old son Kodi and infant daughter Carson, as officers unexpectedly approached their apartment to serve a warrant. As Korryn realized what was happening, she took to her Facebook Live to document the encounter.
This is for anybody who want to know what I'm doing. I'm tired. But the devil at my door, and he's refusing to leave. I'm at peace, I'm in my home. I ain't trying to hurt nobody, I've never hurt anybody. And yeah, they've been quiet a while, so they plotting to come in here and disturb the peace here. They've already disturbed the peace. I'm not a criminal.
So the traffic stop, I think, was in March. And then August 1st, from my understanding, I guess they put an FTA, failure to appear, out because she didn't show up the day that she didn't know she was supposed to be there. And so from what I understand, the officers went to the home. They listened, they said they listened at the door because they could hear someone in the house. And I guess from that they knocked, and when nobody answered, they went and got the key from the rental office and breached the house that way. But when they opened the door, the chain was on it, so they had to kick it in. She owned a legally owned shotgun. And so let me clear something else too, because what they did was when they showed the footage of her with the shotgun, they tried to incorporate the shotgun that she was on Facebook with that day, like she was in the house getting ready, but somebody had broken into her apartment and taken some things. She got a shotgun for protection because at the time it was just her and the kids before Carson's dad came home. And so what the media tried to do on that August 1st was incorporate or combine the two footages to make it look like she was in preparation for them to come, but it wasn't like that. They breached the apartment, and when they came in the house, she was sitting on the floor with the shotgun. And then they retreated. And then I guess they called for support or whatever. But she had asked, like, well, what are y'all doing here? And it was such a long, convoluted situation. That morning, she attempted to, I don't know if it was call or text. I think I woke up and I missed a text from her. And I think it was about the time when they were breaching her door. And I can remember saying, what's going on? And then we had no more communication. And then it was like my phone started ringing because, of course, now it's all over the news. It's breaking news, hostage situation. And I'm just like, what the hell? And she sent me a text. She said, they're here. She said, they're not coming in here. I remember the guy I was dating at the time. He had just left for work. And I called him and I said, I'm going to need you to come back and get me and take me to Korryn's house.
I was in my mom's house that morning, actually playing a video game. and I overheard her talking on the phone. And I think she actually told me that, the police were at your sister's house and she refused to come out. Like I said, I know my sister like this. Even in that situation, we're not stupid people. She's not gonna do anything to get herself shot. She's not. I just know. So I overheard my mother say, I'm on my way down there. I can get her to come out the house. Let me come save my baby. They told my mother it's way past that point now, man.
And so we were living on off of Wilkins Avenue at the time. And he can't circle back, and we started heading towards Liberty Road, heading out that way. This pretty bad day or night. And so when we got in the clutch of things, it was a police car that happened to pull up next to the truck. So I said to him, ask this officer, can he escort us up? So he talked to him. He jumped out the car and went to the officer's window. And I think the officer was like, what is he talking about? And so he got back in the truck because traffic started moving. And as we started moving, the officer pulled back up. I guess he had gotten something over the radio or something. And he said, you talking about up Carriage Hill? And I said, yeah. I said, that's my daughter. And he said, okay, it just came across my radio. So he put his lights on and opened the road up for us to get there. That was probably about 9 o'clock, so it hadn't been going on that long. Mind you, I forgot to mention, I had spoken to Carson's dad, Kareem, when they first took him into custody because he still had his phone on him. And he said to me, Ma, they gonna kill my girl. They gonna kill her. And I said, why? What's going on? And the officer caught him with the phone and took the phone. And I said, hello. And he says, hello, who is this? And I said, this is Korryn Gaines' mom. I said, I'm on my way. He says, oh, it's too late for that. And I said, too late for what? I said, what are you going to do, just kill my daughter? I said, what is going on? So he sort of just discontinued the phone call because it was, he wasn't supposed to have the phone anyway. So we rushing up there. The officer gets us up there, and it was a church right next to Carriage Hill. And that's where the command station, that's what it was called, command post. And so we tried to drive up in there, and the officer, mind you, I had her therapist on the phone. So I pull up, and the officer stops the car, and I'm identifying myself and letting him know that I'm, Korryn Gaines' mother. I have a therapist on the phone. They let us enter. I get to the commander, and I'm trying to, get some little information. I'm trying to let him know that I have a therapist on the phone. He takes the phone and hangs it up. He says, we'll call her back when we need to speak to her. And proceeded, he said, I need to check your phone. So he took my phone. So I was there without my phone for the whole time. My family members who were there had their phones, and they were able to watch her on the live as she was interacting with them.
Korryn wasn't only interacting with family members on Facebook Live, but also with the officers who called her directly.
People outside my door with guns that won't back off.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said there are people outside my door with guns who won't back off. They have taken half of my family out of my home, and it's me and my son in here, and I'm not sure what is going on past that. But I'm just doing what I need to do to protect myself and my child.
Okay, and what is that you feel you need to do?
Excuse me?
What is it that you said that you are doing what you feel you need to do to protect yourself and your son?
I'm just protecting me and him.
Okay.
Because of my psych history, I would say that it was a mental health crisis because she just would not come out. I think she was fearful to in their custody again because she had lost the babies. I think she had a post-traumatic stress type behavior, excuse my friends, fuck y'all not taking me out of here, I don't trust y'all. But that was the reason why I came with her therapist on the phone, because I was the one that actually initiated her going to the hospital. She had this crying fit, she just could not get herself together. And this was well before Carson was born. This was in 2014. And so I had insisted that she seek therapy, and they actually kept her in the hospital for a couple of days. And so I guess she was able to get some things off her chest that were clearly disturbing her at the time. Of course, I'm not privy to it, but, what was said, except for the things that she did share with me. She was dealing with something. She was. Yeah, she had started seeing a therapist in 2014. I'm not sure how consistent she was with follow-up, but I know I was able to get her therapist to try to shed some light on what was going on, but it never happened because the officer cut the phone off. The therapist was the reason why I had called, because I knew that she had some interaction and she was dealing with the therapy stuff, but I just knew that her therapist could offer more insight into her mindset. Well, I felt that she could if she had been allowed to. I took the liberty to call her, at least to find out if she could share something with them. And I worked with this doctor before, so I don't know if the people they brought in was mental health geared. I do know it was a negotiator. But I, till now, don't believe it was crisis negotiation.
I'm still hearing about it on the news, people calling me. So I'm like, do I need to come down there? So, people telling me, no, it's okay. We got it under control.
Law enforcement gave me one story and 2 or 3 stories. First, they said that they weren't there for her. They were there for Carson's dad, because apparently there was some kind of issue with them too. And then they said, well, it wasn't, we're not here for her. Like, why is she behaving like this? We're not here for her. Well, if you're not here for her, why can't you back off? She has a legally owned shotgun. You don't have to keep standing around her door. But it was all lies. It was all lies. They called in the SWAT. This officer, Royce Ruby Jr., stood outside of her door for 6 hours. And we all pled with them. I told them that I would be willing to sign something that would release them from any responsibility if they let me go in and something were to happen. They told me no. They said it was a finality, that if they would allow me to go in, that she may take it as an opportunity to say goodbye and kill herself. My daughter was not suicidal, far from it. I finally got her father there, because he lived in East Baltimore, way, way East Baltimore. So I got her father there, and initially they let us think that they were going to allow him to talk to her. But ultimately they took a recording, which they never played for her, but they took a recording of him speaking to her. But she never heard it. They never played it. And I mean, it was 2 of my nephews, her grandmother, her aunt, her father, myself, my son's wife. It was like 8 to 10 of us there. And all of us tried to reason with them in some kind of way. And then they moved to a different tactic, just putting us at ease. She's going to be fine. We're not going to hurt her. Everything's going to end up fine. I asked them to do a flashbang grenade or a smoke bomb. They told me it was too dangerous because my grandson was in the home. He did not want to leave. When Carson's dad was able to exit the house with Carson, he actually had Kodi with him. Kodi broke away and went back to his mother. Well, the crazy thing was the warrant for her wasn't signed until that afternoon. Failure to appear, misdemeanor traffic violation. And they said while we were in, what did they call it? Something like a holding station or something like that. They multiple times said to me, well, we weren't there for her. Well, which one is it? Are you there for her, him, or both? Now, they did take him into custody, but you're telling me this is initially when we got there, 9 o'clock in the morning. The warrant isn't, we weren't even there for her. These are the things that came out of these officers' mouths, their commander's mouth. So then to find out that the warrant wasn't signed until that afternoon, and then they're basing on breaching her property is because they heard a child. And if she chose not to answer her door, she chose not to answer her door. And they commandeered the neighbor's house. They claim they don't have any footage, but this neighbor stated that they drilled holes in his bathroom wall to send cameras into her house. And this young man said that they came in and they took over his house, and they had a setup in the bathroom. But then they cut her live. I got there about 9-ish, and they shut her social media down 3:30ish in that area. Minutes later, she was dead. Royce Ruby Jr. decided, and he said this, he was hot and he was irritated. They waited to shut her Facebook page down, and he took a shot that he was not authorized to take.
All because this one guy got impatient and had all that tactical gear on. That's what I'm saying. This small little woman, just barely over 100 pounds, if that. And they got tactical gear and everything, and this guy was impatient, man.
From the way she was, this was the wall. She was in this area, in the galley of the kitchen. This is the wall. He shot through the angle of that wall. He couldn't even see her. He couldn't see her. And the way she was hitting her back. Her Facebook went off. Some strange message came across her message that said, "I'm over it, I'm done." And then all of the officers that were there all day with us, it was like a change of the guard. These other officers came in, and the officers that were there all day, they left the room. Well, when I was asking the other officers what was going on, they said that they didn't know. And it was only a few minutes later that I kind of rushed out the room, rushed past them, and went outside. And the officer who was then calling himself the command officer, he was coming up the hill. And I said, "What's going on? What's going on?" And he said, "She's gone."
She got hit in the back, sitting down with her legs crossed. And she made my grandson a sandwich. All because he got impatient.
He said she was gone, and he said your grandson was injured. First, they tried to say that she shot my grandson. Let's clear that up. That was the first thing that they tried to say, that they thought that she had shot my grandson. The last thing I remember was hitting the ground. I got the scar to prove it. I hit the ground, and then he says, "Kodi is being taken to the hospital." In that instance, I was like, you know what? Let me get myself together, because I gotta get myself together for this baby. The officer did come to the vicinity of where we were. I didn't know it was him, but my nephew knew it was him because of what he said. He said, "Man, I'm sorry," one of them type of things. I can't even explain it, to just be there, like a couple of 100 feet from my child, and to know that she was gunned down, where I could have gotten to her, where I could have possibly saved her life. I can't even formulate the words to even explain what that felt like. Again, I felt guilty a lot, because I said, well, what if I had just done something like ran to her, or I don't know what I could have done. But I always asked myself that. What could I have done differently?
Officer Royce Ruby had taken the shot, killing Korryn Gaines and injuring her 5-year-old son, Kodi.
All of that was such a blur, my emotional standpoint at the time. I know I was very anxious. At times, I felt like I should have just ran to her house. I mean, I'm sure they would have tried to intervene, but it's almost like every day I think about what could I have done differently? What could have changed this outcome? Because my pleading and begging and suggestion didn't work. And then to have my grandson almost killed, he has to live with that for the rest of his life. He has to live with the emotional, the physical. He'll never be able to play sports because they had to reconstruct his whole elbow. Bullet hole in the face. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm able to speak to you guys because it's a relief to even be able to share it, to hear my words from another person's perspective that I know is going to put it out there earnestly and the way it's really happened. I think that's the hardest part is humanizing her. But I was in shock that they shared with me that my daughter was dead. Everybody in the room, because I was the only one that left out at that time, but I guess when I rushed out, it gave everybody else the energy to come out, and be like, what's going on? And the family just lost it. I had family members pulling up in cars, falling out all in the ground. It was the most, it was horrible. It was horrible, the pain. It was horrible.
That's one day I always try to forget. I just couldn't believe what I was saying. I caught it on the news. And that's the sad part about it. I caught it on the news. And I had to I looked, I seen the name, and I'm like, hold on now. You know, the letters come across the screen on the bottom. That's where I was reading it from. And the first thing came to my mind when I caught the tail end of it. They said, young lady was shot and killed holding a child hostage. And the first thing came to my mind, dang, what that girl thinking about? And it was my daughter going across that, and I just went blank. One thing I remember calling her mother, and everything else was real fuzzy, for real.
I got in the house and screamed. Like he said, saying her name come across the TV. I found out my sister was dead by the TV. I wasn't there for her. That's how I feel. I wasn't there for my sister. I felt like she needed me. That's how I found out, though. And I found out on the news. I don't even remember nothing else after that. Just being angry. I think a lot of people thought it was suspect. Because, and I've actually, it's my sister, I've actually looked at different cases, and I'm not saying that they haven't cut off people power or haven't done the things, but it's been more in a more violent crime, like this person has actually killed somebody or is on the run and ran to somebody else's and is held up. But for a traffic stop, you're shutting off Instagrams, Facebooks, power, water.
The only thing that stands out for me is when they were asking her to come out, and no, she was asking them to back away from her door. And Royce Ruby says she says to the negotiator, I hope she knows we're not going anywhere. That was one of the things that I heard. Now, her neighbor heard her asking them to back away. She would come out and some more stuff, but I don't want to repeat something that is not accurate, but that's what I heard when she asked them to back away, and the officer said to the negotiator, oh, I hope she knows we're not going anywhere.
Like, for real, are they taunting me? Y'all killed my sister over a traffic warrant. This dude shooting at y'all. I mean, y'all walk him out of there? Yeah, it's definitely two laws in America. It's a white law and a black law.
After finding out the horrific news of Officer Ruby killing Korryn and injuring Kodi, Rhonda went to the hospital to check on her grandson.
I don't remember who took me down to Hopkins. I think my nephew drove me down, Creole Brady. He rushed me to the hospital, and I can remember it was so many of us that they called the police. There was too many of us on the property. And this is family, blood family. You know, extended family showed up too, but this was just like immediate family. And again, like I said, his grandmother got there. They weren't going to let anyone with him. And I expressed to them, how can y'all have a 5-year-old because he was surrounded by police, surrounded by the very people that he just watched killed his mother. I said, why won't y'all let somebody upstairs with him? You know why? They were questioning him. Ultimately, somebody did tell me that I could go up. His father showed up a little later, and I then gave him the opportunity. I said, well, if you would rather go up and be with him, you can. And he said, no, you can go ahead. So I took the opportunity to go up and see him before they took him into surgery. And I remember he had the Band-Aid on his face. And I said, well, what's wrong with his face? And they said, oh, it must be shrapnel from the shotgun. Well, they pulled a piece of the law enforcement's bullet from his face. This is the other thing. They were texting my family members and my daughter from my phone as though they were me. They were texting friends, family, as well as Korryn. How I found out was my girlfriend called me. She was like, you know, when I got home, we had left the hospital because Kodi had to be rushed to the hospital, and we were coming in to try to get some rest. And she was talking to me like she was picking up on a conversation that we had. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, you were responding to the text. I said, I did not have my phone. She said, sis, you were I said, no, it was not me. My daughter, she knew she wasn't after a point because once I got my phone back, one of her responses like, Ma, are you crazy? What are you talking about? She knew that was not her mother talking to her. Because those words, she said, Ma, are you crazy? And I was like, my child thought she was talking to me.
Special thank you to the family of Korryn Gaines. We appreciate you for listening to Say Their Name, courtesy of DCP Entertainment. As well as special thanks to our team, host and executive producers Adell Coleman and myself, Chris Colbert, producers Heather Johnson, Ryan Woodhall, and Mike DuBose, associate producer Quinton Hill, and editor and sound designer Byron Hunt. Join us next week for part 2 on Korryn Gaines.
The move that the judge made was like unbelievable. And who does that in a jury trial? Unless there's some misconduct or something like that. We didn't ask for a judge trial. We asked for a jury trial, we got it, and you still inserted your feelings on the way you thought things should turn out. He said that the jurors got it wrong. Those were his words, the jurors got it wrong. See, the mainstream media, they don't put that information out. They do not put that information out. Like I told another reporter, people are upset at the system